So we're going to talk tonight. We're going to start off talking about The Bachelor. Yeah, ABC's The Bachelor. I know this is going to get wild, guys. I have to admit to you, I do not watch The Bachelor. I've never really watched The Bachelor and did not watch this season of The Bachelor, but the story is so exposing that we are going to talk about it tonight, because what this story exposes is the fact that the ultra woke has reeled into a level of ridiculousness that exposes the fact that a lot of this wokeism we're experiencing in our culture around us, all this cancel culture, cancellations, people being fired and whatnot, a lot of that is being exposed to be really just for clicks, for money, for views, for notoriety. We're seeing celebrities and all of the award shows and everything so ultra woke. And a lot of that is just to pander to their bosses, pander to whoever they think it is that's going to allow them to continue making money. And a lot of them have used it for notoriety, to become more famous. I mean, I think we saw that, I could start dropping names like Colin Kaepernick, but I've never been a big fan of his because I'm a big Boise State football fan, and he played for Nevada, and so we already had that rivalry. So, I have to kind of give a caveat to that. But I do think that a lot of his whole, what he started, the movement he started, a lot of that was maybe for some exposure. I think many of us can make those accusations. And a lot of, and then everything that followed, right? Then Alyssa Milano, right? She gets in on the Me Too movement and is accused of stealing the movement from another woman, but is using it in order to gain fame. She was somebody who was fairly irrelevant before that point. I think we've seen a lot of this. A lot of people who were at one point in their career irrelevant, and then suddenly this woke culture allows them to become relevant again. But it gets worse, because a lot of these then media outlets take that and then they've been able to harness it into a money-making machine. And then even worse, they're able to take that wokeism and rip livelihoods away from others, saying, well, you no longer are fit for society. We are banishing you. We're getting rid of you. We don't want to hear from you. We don't want to see you. And now you're going to lose your job, and you're going to be replaced by somebody nobody's ever heard of, who maybe did or did not earn their job getting to taking your job. And so this wokeism has created an environment that has made it, I think, for many people, really afraid to say anything, speak up. A lot of people just kind of get in on it and they don't actually believe it. I think we all know those people, right? On our Facebook pages, our family and friends, we kind of see them and that they're just saying things just to say things because it's the thing to say, but they don't actually believe it. They don't even know what it is. So what's interesting about The Bachelor, ABC's The Bachelor, which I believe is in its, I don't know how many seasons. How long has this show been on? 27 seasons or something ridiculous. It's been on the air way too long. I didn't even know they still had it, to be honest with you. That's how But this show has now exposed that the ultra woke, because this show, Chris Harrison, the host of The Bachelor, who'd been the host of The Bachelor and The Bachelorette forever and ever and ever, was fired recently because of the ultra woke. And this was definitely an ultra woke moment that got him fired. This show now has reeled into a level of absolute ridiculousness. So the backstory is, before we get into this current season finale and the final rose and all that stuff, and if you're not familiar with the show, it's okay. You don't need to be in order to understand where this whole story goes. But Chris Harrison was the host of this show for a really long time. And a contestant this season, this chick who's, like I said, I don't really watch this, so I'm going to have to kind of bear with me as I kind of try to figure out these names. I think her name was Rachel Kirkconnell. Okay, so she's a contestant on The Bachelor. Now, they filmed this show. This is an important thing to know. They filmed this show before it airs. So it's airing, and the people that were on the show are sitting at home watching it, and a lot of them have to all go into isolation. They're not allowed to go walking around outside, because then people, or I think actually no, they can go and be seen, but they have to hide whether or not they were kicked off the show early, or if they are, ended up getting the final rose and getting the proposal with the big ring and all that stuff. So this is already filmed. And during the season that's airing and everyone's watching, it turns out that one of the contestants, this Rachel Kirkconnell, went to an antebellum party in 2018 went to an antebellum party, dressed up, all dolled up in a pink antebellum dress, and that was racist, that this antebellum party was racist, and that, how dare she was caught. Plus, it turns out she was caught dressing up in a variety of costumes for Halloween, such as, I believe one of them was like in traditional Mexican garb, I think. And another one maybe was in traditional like Native American garb. Not really sure. Something like that. And then the worst offense was that oh no, how dare she? But she liked a photo of her friend. Okay, she liked a photo of her friend. But her friend, which was this girlfriend of hers, and these girls, they get on Instagram and they like their friends' pictures just to be like giving them likes because they care about how many likes they get and stuff like that. So she's probably scrolling really fast and likes her friend's picture. And it turns out that photo was taken at a frat house, and in the background, the frat house part wasn't the thing that they went after her for. Although they probably would have if they wouldn't have seen that there was actually a Confederate flag in the background of this photograph. So how dare this Rachel Kirkconnell girl like this photograph of her friend standing there looking cute, and it just so happens at the frat house they had a Confederate flag. So they went after her and said she's a racist, right? So that's what they were going after her for, saying how dare she go to this antebellum party. By the way, so I'm from Idaho. I'm not from the South at all. And I didn't know that antebellum was apparently racist, I guess, until Lady Antebellum changed their name from Lady Antebellum to Lady A, right? So I didn't know about that. And then I just today had someone explain to me, because even when Lady Antebellum changed their name, I was like, oh, okay, so antebellum's racist. I just glossed over. I didn't really think to research it or care. And then today I asked somebody, why is antebellum specifically, why is that considered racist? And they said, well, antebellum just means Old South, pre-Civil War South is what it means. That's actually what that word means. So when you say antebellum party, that means you're to dress up in costumes from the pre-Civil War era. So there's a certain look to those costumes, and they show up to these parties with those costumes, really nice ball gowns that are, old timey. And that's racist because this was pre-Civil War. And as you know, in the South in the Civil War, there was racism. So that is what people are upset about when it comes to antebellum, because antebellum means before the Civil War, and apparently that's racist. So apparently that's racist and extremely offensive, and you're not allowed to throw an antebellum party or go to an antebellum party. How dare you dress up? The people say, it's fine to know our history, but to celebrate history or to recognize that racist history is bad. So apparently you can't have like an American Revolution style party. That is why we're seeing the toppling of various statues from pre-Civil War era, because that's America's racist history. Never mind the fact that as a woman, I wasn't able to vote back before the Civil War, right? So I could say, no, you don't understand. This is not offensive because it's racist. This is offensive because as a woman, my kind back then was essentially traded as cows by family members. I mean, that's what how they were treating us women, right? They were treating us like we were cows to be traded for like dowries and crap. And we couldn't even vote. We didn't have a voice. We couldn't own land. We couldn't own bank accounts. I mean, so therefore, I'm offended, too, that you would throw this antebellum party. How dare you feminist, misogynist, anti-feminist, misogynist bastard, you. That sounds crazy to me. By the way, I don't have any sort of feelings about you thinking the American Revolution was a cool time period, or the pre-Civil War antebellum era was like a cool time period. Because women were not treated as equals. It's no skin off my back, to be honest with you. But apparently it's really racist. You can't, anything antebellum. So that is the controversy that happened with this particular contestant. Okay, so the season goes on, and now this contestant, this controversy is happening in the real world while the show is still airing, and that contestant is on it. Chris Harrison goes on Extra. He's being interviewed. Now, he's the host of The Bachelor, and the host asks him, so what did you think of that Rachel Kirkconnell chick at that antebellum party, right? Like, what did you think of that? And Chris Harrison, who did not go to the antebellum party, did not like any posts with the Confederate flag, right? He was not the person who did any of this. He says, well, I just don't think we should really judge. I think things are, maybe we should kind of give people a break, give them room to grow, like maybe shouldn't know about how offensive that was to some people who apparently have memories of pre-Civil War and they're like really traumatized by this. He basically just said, I'm not really going to go after her or cancel her for something she did as a young college girl. And he got canceled. He lost his job for that. Okay, he lost his job for refusing to come down on a chick who went to an antebellum party. That, by the way, there was no one at that antebellum party was like forced to dress up as slaves. They didn't block blacks from attending the party saying you can't be here because this is an antebellum party and therefore, back then you wouldn't have been at this style of, I mean, none of that real racism was happening. These people just were dressing up like pre-Civil War era in these big giant ball gowns and wigs and stuff. So he gets fired for refusing to say what she did was like heinous and a crime against humanity. And they replace him with Emmanuel Acho. I've like worked on pronouncing his name correctly before coming on air, and here I am now not knowing how to say it. So they replaced him with this NFL dude. And so last night was the season finale. Okay, and let me show you this article. This is the Washington Post. I know this is like a real credible news source, but so they say, in an emotional finale, Bachelor Matt James breaks up with the winner over racially insensitive social media posts. So now remember, that show, the whole show was filmed before this saga came out. These two apparently, so long story short, so I'm not messing this up for you. This guy has all these women to choose from. And the one woman he chooses in the end, which the episode apparently aired last night, the one woman he chooses in the end is the first black bachelor. He's the first black bachelor. The woman he chooses is the racist chick. He chose the racist girl, like as if this couldn't get any crazier, which just goes. So, let me hold on. I'm going to hold off on my thought on that. You're probably thinking already what I'm thinking. But he, of course, chose the one racist girl that now weeks later, they air the episode. He gives her the rose and he's like, I'm not ready to marry you yet, but I could see you as the mother of my children. And you're like the most wonderful woman in the world. And right. So after they air, the way the show works is after they air that pre-recorded segment that was done well before the controversy about her and her antebellum costume came out. They then, after they air that episode and everybody's shocked and says, oh, he chose the racist. The next episode that they do is live. They actually bring everybody back, all the contestants, the bachelor and the person and the woman he chose, and they bring them back and it's aired live. So now everyone can see, and now it's like, weeks or even months after they were all together filming this, and now they can all see the shenanigans that happen. And sometimes it's really dramatic because the final pick finds out that he actually slept with the other girl the night before he proposed to her. It's like really dramatic. So we find out last night that he chooses the racist. So of course, now that their live show is on, they all come back out and it turns out that they have broken up. They have now broken up, and they broke up over her racial insensitivity. Of course, comes out, she's a big racist, and he says, oh my gosh, I can't believe I chose the racist. And so he has to break up with her, apparently. So they break up. And then last night they have to come together, and here's the picture of them. Look at them looking at each other like this. Look at that. Oh my gosh. It's just so, it's like dramatic. Dun, dun, dun. Scorned love. Look at that racist girl. The irony of this, by the way, is that nobody went after Matt James, this bachelor guy, for not picking the other girl. So he chose that girl, okay, the white chick. That's who he chose. There was like a black girl and he didn't choose her. Nobody cares, So they're only caring about the fact that he chose this girl and she's or that she said racist things, and they don't call him out for, why didn't he choose a black woman, and that would have been great and all this stuff. No, they don't go after him for being a racist for picking the white girl over the black girl, which is, I think, kind of what the ultra woke would do. But they have their, I don't know. That's why it's so hard to know what's going to be the new ultra woke thing. Is it going to be me today? Is it going to be you tomorrow? We don't know. because there's no consistency or rhyme or reason to the whole thing. And there's no real end agenda, right? There's no actual, what are we trying to accomplish here with this wokeism? Who is benefiting? Where are we going with this? And because there isn't any of that clear agenda of what's happening, where are we going, who wins, what are we attempting to accomplish with this, rather than just reverting back into segregation, because that's kind of where they're headed. They're like, well, no, you can't be with us and we can't be with you, and you can't do things that my people created and I can't do things your people created. We need to kind of be in isolated racial isolation bubbles because we can't mix, possibly because mixing would be bad, right? I don't know exactly what their agenda is. So anyway, we go on to this, and they're saying here, like in this article, the Washington Post, that cares a lot about The Bachelor, says, nearly every season of The Bachelor, there's a stark disconnect between what was filmed and where the final couple is now. Months after the cameras stopped rolling, that's especially true this season, featuring Matt James, a 29-year-old real estate broker from New York who's the first black man to star on the show. As Monday night's finale opens on a snowy Nemacolin resort in Farmington, Pennsylvania, viewers are reminded that before we can get answers to what happened with Rachel Kirkconnell, the 24-year-old graphic designer from Georgia who sparked controversy over her racially insensitive social media posts, we will need to sit through 2 hours of James deciding who to pick and whether to propose. So he ends up picking the racist girl. We know that, blah, 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 right? So then they bring them back, and let's see, I'm trying to find here, so he doesn't pick the other woman who happens to be black. He doesn't go for her. He chooses the white chick. Nobody seems to care in the woke world. And then it says, after the final rose, Emmanuel Acho, right? Am I saying that right? Former NFL linebacker and host of the video series Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. So he was brought in to be the new host for this dude, for Chris Harrison, right? That got kicked out for being unwilling to cancel somebody who they were trying to cancel. So he says, are you guys, he asks, this one's interesting. He asks, guys, this gets stupid. Okay, he says this. Afterward, Acho asks James about the pressure of being the first black bachelor. He says, quote, as a black person, there's an extra level of scrutiny. This is what Matt James says. As a black person, there's an extra level of scrutiny when you're the first of something, James says. And you want to make sure that you're on your best behavior in terms of how you're speaking, how you present yourself. Because for a lot of people, that was the first time having someone like myself in their home. What? Like, we didn't have a black president for 8 years. Like, Oprah Winfrey didn't have the adoration of every single woman. And Oprah Winfrey was the most powerful person on the planet for a really long time. And this guy's acting like this is the first time we've ever seen someone black in our lives. This is what he's actually saying. This is how the ultra woke have become so insane. They have reverted us back into a time period. I don't know what they're talking about. What era are you talking about where people for the first time are sitting in their home saying, this is the first time I've ever seen somebody who looks like that? I mean, honestly, this is where wokeism has gotten us. And this is really what I think many of us have suspected, that it would sort of reel us back into this. It's like totally devoid of reality, acting like segregation is still a real thing and that slavery is still a real thing. And that apparently we've never seen black people on our television screens. Okay, Obama and Oprah and plenty of other people, right? Like, I don't really need to make a list. But he says this is the first time a lot of people, that was the first time having someone like myself in their home. I mean, what the hell? So anyway, he goes on to say, I fell in love with their authenticity and all this stuff. So look, here's the deal. What I want to bring up about this is The Bachelor's ratings were tanking. It was on the brink of being canceled. It had been on the brink of being canceled for years. And so what did they do to try to save their show? They instead manufactured what they did was they harnessed the wokeism. And they said, well, all we have to do in order to get some attention, because look, now here we are talking about it, is they said, all we have to do to get some attention is create some sort of racism scandal. And so they created a racism scandal. And believe me, I don't believe those two are actually broken up. Or I don't think that or maybe he chose her because the producers told him to choose her. because then they were going to release these sort of scandalous photographs. And then it was going to be this big thing where, oh my gosh, then he chooses the racist. And then when he brings her back, of course, he did the right thing. He's a hero. He's now broken up with the racist. And this poor girl now she probably didn't even know what was going on. The producers just did this to make money off of her. Now she's going to be painted as a racist person for the rest of, however long that lasts against her. And she's now, much of her life is ruined. Many opportunities are ruined for her because she went to an antebellum party. And they did this for ratings. They did this to save their show. They did this not really actually caring about social justice, not really actually caring about making change and bringing forward a better discourse, more understanding, people truly coming together and making America and our culture better for one another. They don't care about any of that. And most of these woke people don't. They don't care about any of that. They're riding on a wave in order to get notoriety, in order to make money, in order to get clicks. And the sooner we all kind of realize this and say, I am all for a better society. I am all for us moving forward together and ending, not having racism in our society and bigotry, and ensuring that everybody gets an equal shot at all the opportunities based on their merits, based on their skills, based on their hard work, based on their ethics, all of those things, I don't want to live in a society where some people are held back because of their gender or because of their race. I don't want to live in a society like that either. And I don't think you do. I don't think any of us want to live in a society like that. We want to live in a fair and equitable society, and one that allows us all the same shake at chasing the cheese, right? Like, that's what we all want. And yet this wokeism culture really is a method and a means for many people to just make gobs of money and to become famous doing it. And that's really disgusting, because it's actually not helping our society at all. In fact, the woke culture is actually creating more damage. This is absolutely more damaging. This is the worst thing that has happened culturally to us in decades. To me, it's very similar to the rise in ultra Christianity, where they basically would persecute anybody who didn't believe and align with their way of thinking. To me, this is no different. And we took a long time to kind of rid our society of that sort of mentality. And it was only really fairly recently that we sort of started to kind of get to that point where it wasn't this hyper-religious crowd running everything. I mean, they still do in a lot of ways. Like in Idaho, for example, you can't buy liquor anywhere except for a state-run liquor store, because they've got that the ultra religious crowd still running the government, and they don't want. And in Idaho, you can't have weed. Weed is not legalized because the ultra religious people, they just don't want those heathens and those sinners in their community. And that is what we're seeing with the wokeism. It's the same thing. It's just this new religion that they're wrapping their arms around and saying, well, and if you don't believe exactly like we do, or if you're not willing to even to go after somebody, like Chris Harrison, how dare you even not. You wouldn't cast out the sinner. And because you wouldn't cast out the sinner, you are now a sinner too, and you must be cast out. I mean, that's where we're at with this. And it's not helpful for our society. It is reeling us into a backward state. It isn't bringing forth anything healthy into the discourse. And now The Bachelor shows, because I guarantee you, these two will probably, the next headline will be, Matt James forgives the racist girl. And I don't know. Would the ultra woke go for that? Would they go for him forgiving her and those two getting back together? Probably not, right? They're not going to go for that. No, he's going to pick the other girl that he dismissed, right? Because it's a happy ending. He does actually pick the black woman, which he should have picked according to them from the very beginning. I mean, this is like not this just shows, because all of this was clearly for money. All of this was clearly planted. It was clearly insane. It had reached a level of ridiculousness that it exposed the entire thing as not being for the benefit of society, not for benefiting us as a culture, but instead benefiting a few, helping a few get a lot of money. And that's what it's really all about. And we should be keeping our eyes open to it, because we're trying to progress, right, as a society, and this isn't helping us at all. And I'm sure this segment didn't help us progress at all either, because I spent it talking about The Bachelor, which is, a stupid show with the stupid premise and probably should be canceled anyway for real reasons, not because of racism or the ultra woke mob going after them, but because they just kind of deserve to be like legitimately canceled.